All right. So yeah, so on this page we have this is our Facebook business page. All kinds of videos we've done before, recordings, Shantae from Management, Gemini, PRP.
The title O&E with Pro Title. And last month we had the Q&A with 5 active note investors. This is our YouTube page, has the same videos, but if anyone needs to go a different spot, it's on here. All right. And then here's our meetup group that we also have that we show. All right. Next, these are our actual guests who will be speaking to us tonight. We have Liz. She runs a company called TapeDecks, which we'll get into, of course, a little bit more. We have Rob from Fixed Notes. He used to run USMR. And then we also have Chaz and Claudia now from Granite, who's been around forever. So what I'm going to do now, just to go over some. Before we actually get rock and rolling. For all who don't know who I am, I run a meetup in New Jersey, but I've been in distressed notes for close to 7 years now. With that, I've been doing due diligence for different firms, different funds. I've also been buying personally since 2012, I guess now. I run my own little thing and fund and all that stuff. We buy notes together with other joint ventures for private money, and I do that from the comfort of my own home. With that, I want to talk a little bit about this chat, how we run the webinar. On the bottom of the screen, there's a chat button for all guests to actually ask questions. There's also a hand-raising part of that as well. And from there, you can ask questions. So what I'm going to ask is that if anyone has a question or whatever, you can put it in there. And guests, if you don't need to see yourself on this video, if you don't want to, you can bring the chat window up and have a partially covered picture of yourself and be able to follow the chat along as well. I'm also going to try following the chat here with allowing everyone here to kind of watch what's going on our big screen. Just the idea, we have a large picture screen on the wall. We're knocking my soda. And that will project onto everyone in the room. What's going on? So we got people waving in the background as we get going here. So Patty, I hope I fixed the issue you're having. Also wanted to talk about, we have a book. Paper Profits. It's a really good beginner book that introduces you to notes, why notes is actually better investment than brick and mortar, REOs, a lot of detail, which I haven't seen before. But Josh, thanks very much for writing this up and answered a lot of beginner questions. With everyone on this webinar tonight, you have opportunities, including myself, for JV opportunities, and also contact them for help when you want to buy a note, for assistance on different questions and whatnot. For those who are not familiar with notes, I'm going to actually turn off my view for me, hide myself. Distressed mortgages is basically the debt behind owning a mortgage. Once that goes defaulted, we can buy it in the secondary market and buy it with the opportunity to make an investment in different fashions. I won't dive in too much into that. I'm going to let the guests handle that. But we have multiple extra strategies that we use and are ready and enjoy. So if there's any additional questions, feel free to put in the chat window and we'll answer as we go. But I'm going to go ahead and allow, starting with Liz, introduce yourself to everybody. You're at it. Yes. I did also put this up too. You can also look at it. Here's the email addresses and whatnot. So I have not seen that, Claudia, so I'll have to get a copy of that from you guys. Oh, you're muted, girly. Let me make sure you're. There you are.
I'm unmuted. Sorry. No, we give these out as like little giveaways at the conferences.
Cool.
I'll save you a couple, Dave.
Thank you. So we'll go from there. I'm going to start with Liz. Introduce yourself, Liz. Kind of brief over who you are, what you do, and the business that you can offer our participants.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me tonight, and hello to everyone that's watching or there. I just got my wine too. I saw people in the background. I was like, well, then if they're having wine, I'm having wine. So if you see me take a sip or two, please no judgments. It's late here. So I'm Liz Broomer-Smith, and I have been investing in mortgage notes for close to 5 years now. And just like Dave, I purchase non-performing first lien mortgages for myself, for our company. I am a privately funded company, or we are a privately funded company. So we work with investors on JV opportunities or as a private lending agreement. Very similar to how you've probably heard him discuss. About 2 years ago, we kind of felt in our own business we had a need for assistance with due diligence. Oh, is this like backlogging? Is it bad echo? Dave, is it like bad echo?
No, we're not having echo at all.
I can hear what you're hearing, Liz.
Okay.
I have a ridiculous echo.
Oh. Give me 1 second, and maybe a participant.
I'm going to try and put headphones in. Maybe that'll help.
Hold 1 second. There may be a participant with their mic on. Give me 1 second.
Okay. It's better. Okay. So about no.
Why didn't you put in Dustin? Oh, you want 4,400 rent?
You get an echo still?
Okay. So yeah, so about 2 years ago, we had a need out of our own business. So we decided to come up with like a total outsourcing program for your preliminary due diligence. And we now have a company called TapeTex where you can simply upload 1 asset, 10 assets, 100 assets to be researched by virtual assistants. And they do the whole preliminary due diligence process from start to finish. So that is me in a nutshell.
All right, I'm going to let Rob go ahead and go for it.
Sure, and I did see a comment. If you mute your mic, we might have less of an echo. All right, I guess it's muted. Hi guys, I'm Rob Heitha. Thanks for having me tonight, Dave, for setting this all up. So I started in this business about 6 years ago, 2011, with U.S. Mortgage Resolution, and I was their first employee right out of college. And since I've always been interested in real estate, and I do own about 4 rental units now, I'm under contract to close on a triplex I'm very excited about. But notes were a natural fit, and obviously notes are superior to rental properties in a number of ways, as we'll get into here. But notes were a natural fit. So I've done everything in the office, from auditing collateral files to recording the satisfactions. I ran the whole due diligence desk at USMR for pretty much my whole time there, and analyzed and actually purchased well over 3,000 loans. So all in all, I've probably analyzed close to 10,000 assets, not acquiring all of them, but the total real estate value I calculated a couple of weeks ago, it turned out to be about $1 billion of real estate. And what I really love about the distressed debt business is the fact that you can quickly scale those numbers up when you're reviewing loans. These are discounted investments, and since you're buying at such a reduced amount to the principal balance, you can really analyze quite an amount of debt very quickly. So in January 2017, I started my own company, Fix Notes, as a brokerage and a distressed debt consultancy. And I can give you one piece of advice in my quick 5 minutes here, is to just get started analyzing loans right away. You don't know what you don't know until you actually do something about it. So I will point you to my website, a quick pitch here, fixnotes.com/inventory. You can start reviewing loans for sale right away. And I'd be happy to talk to you about specific reasons why loans are priced a certain way, or different, bankruptcy, legal, or borrower correspondence type of questions with specific case studies in mind that are actually available for sale now. So that's fixednotes.com/inventory. Thanks a lot, Dave.
Go ahead, Chaz and Claudia.
All right. How you doing out there, everyone? Chaz Gwynn, Claudia Newcomer. We're based out of Orange County, California. So for all of our East Coast folks, good to see you. We've been working with Dave Putz for 5-6 years now, right, Dave? So it's good to know that to see your growth. I mean, look, you now have a room filled with people that are looking to learn more about what we're all doing as a business. And Granite Strategic Investments, we've been around now for a little under 7 years in terms of buying and selling first lien NPL, what we call non-performing loans, and RPLs, reperforming loans, directly from major institutions. Now we're starting to buy directly from major banks, GSEs, HUD, Fannie, Freddie. So we buy what we kind of coined as kind of created a bridge between Wall Street and guys like you who are Main Street investors who are looking to figure out what this note game is all about. And I think one thing for us kind of helped us separate ourselves a little. The diligence information around each deal, because we understand that it's still real estate. You're still buying and selling real estate. Now you're just buying the instrument, that security instrument that's still tied to that property. So for us, we try and kind of differentiate ourselves a little bit from other sellers and buyers out there, because we wrap what we're going to be talking about today, right, Dave, which is due diligence information around each file. We want you guys to see what today's market values are. We want you to see what's on title, what taxes delinquent, if any, are owed. We want you to see all this information so you see what we see, so that when we come to discuss and negotiate price point, we're talking about the same deal and we're on the same playing field to be able to make a transaction happen. So to date, we've purchased a little over 8,000 of these single-family residence first lien deals. So we have a decent amount of experience in kind of buying these instruments since 2007. So I got into this space in 2006. So I was a little bit before this big crash and movies out there that are called The Big Short that we're all becoming to kind of understand, and how we all kind of, this whole issue came about. And it's funny enough that Wall Street is now creating a new loan programs out there called non-QM. Stands for non-qualified mortgage. So I'm like, uh-oh, here we go again. They're going to start this whole process all over again, which is okay. So everybody in this room, there's more runway coming after you in terms of more bad loans to purchase. So in a nutshell, we're a buyer and seller. We sell one-off properties individually, and we also sell bulk. So if people are looking to do 5 loans, 10 loans, 50 loans, we sell that much. GraniteStrategic.com is us if you want to learn some more information about us, but we'll get into that as we get going here, Dave.
Great, guys. I appreciate that. So I wanted to get into, we got into a little bit about your first, second space and your experience. We want to dive right into it. Most of the people on the call and in the room are familiar with what note investing is, have an understanding of that. Let's get into the fact of, what is a quick due diligence checklist of things you're looking for when you're buying a note at our different levels, from Liz's level all the way up to Chad's level? What are you looking for? What kind of checklist, general checklist would you say you're looking for? Liz, go ahead.
So since I'm a smaller institutional buyer, like Robert and Chaz mentioned, they're buying in large amounts. So our due diligence, while we're looking for a lot of the same things, it might look different in certain stages, maybe the service or the companies that we're using, or whatever it may be. So for me, I'm pretty much going to be looking in the preliminary stage. I'm going to be looking at the actual asset. I want to make sure that the asset, since really that's the underlying collateral. If I take this property back, I want to know all about the property. Is it in good condition? What's the value? Is it occupied, unoccupied? So those are going to be like I would say the biggest things I'm looking for is evaluating the actual asset. From there, I'm going to be looking at the things that might be attached to the property. Liens or judgments. I'm also going to be looking for things like possible delinquent taxes, as Chaz mentioned. That's going to be important because it's going to affect the total cost I have invested into the property. And I also want to look for things about the borrower. So if it is occupied, does the borrower have a second mortgage? That's, again, going to ultimately affect the outcome of my exit strategy. And I also want to know about their bankruptcy status, because bankruptcy has a big role in doing notes. So those are like the big things I'm looking for up front. That's kind of what you do in your preliminary stage. And then if I do buy a property, let's say from Chaz, and I have it under contract, then I'm going to be verifying all that stuff in the formal due diligence stage. So there's kind of two stages you go through. One's everything you can find up front for free as much as possible. And the second thing is kind of like verifying everything, actually paying for your lien searches or paying for calling the county and making sure that the taxes are actually accurate online, because sometimes it's not available online or it's not accurate. So that's what I'm looking for. That's kind of like my checklist.
Awesome. Rob, what would you say your due diligence checklist is at your level of when you're buying seconds? Because it's a little different than first phase. What's your checklist you're looking for?
Well, with second liens, your number one report that you're going to look for is the credit report, because the biggest driver of price when you're buying a second lien, assuming it is a secured junior lien, is the value and the status of the senior position loan. So when you pull a credit report, ideally you're going to have a pay string showing the borrower's payments on that senior position loan, plus a balance and a payment amount. And you can use those figures to start calculating your equity. And you can even back into some exit strategies. If you know the value of that senior lien mortgage payment, then assuming that you foreclose from the junior position, you know the threshold that you have to meet per month to start, paying that loan if you acquire the property. And I do want to add something to what Liz said, because her checklist was excellent. But her idea of pulling a lot of free and inexpensive resources in the front end is exactly how we do it at the higher level. And then you'll send a letter of intent. So if you hear a seller talk about an LOI, it means an indicative bid subject to further due diligence. So you pull all of the free research you can. You look on Zillow and ePraisal. You look at the public records if you can. And then you make that indicative offer. You pull the actual title report. You have a realtor go to the property. You do the in-depth research. And if all of it matches your preliminary research that you've done, then you've already agreed with the seller based on that letter of intent to close at your indicative price point. So at a high level, when we're buying in bulk, we take some shortcuts sometimes. And like I said, with second liens, when we're using a credit report to check out the equity, we're also using AVMs and different types of cheaper valuation methods to do a very quick review of the entire portfolio, then digging in a little deeper into BPOs and title when necessary. So I think Chaz could speak to that at a higher level as well.
All right, Chaz, go ahead. Let us know what your due diligence checklist is at the level where you're buying massive amount of loans at one time.
Yeah, I think Liz and Rob, for everyone in the room, we've been working with them and transacting with them for years. With Liz, I think what she's gotten really good at is kind of finding her own niche and kind of finding what works for her and her company. And I think what she understands is we supply all of our due diligence information to you guys, but we absolutely ask you to verify it. We're not ever saying that this is right and true and correct, but we are trying to give you some sort of kind of an indicator as to where to start from. So that's initially what that is normally proposed to support, because most sellers, institutional sellers, don't give us all of the information that we supply to downstream individual investors like yourself. But in terms of an overall collective, so I don't get you guys all kind of stuck in the minutia of all this business, because we purchase hundreds, sometimes thousands at a time. And I've got a staff of 6 people, right? So we're, as Claudia peeks her head in, we do have vendors that are national vendors that can run our values for us, that can have local boots on the ground. And I'll tell you guys, have your own valuation process, because BPOs can only take you so far and can only show you so much. And at the end of the day, the O in BPO is opinion. So it's kind of about somebody's local presence and what they feel the property's worth. So that's kind of what we have, our own modeling and our own kind of system that we've ran to kind of understand what we feel properties in Gary, Indiana are worth, or Sickerville, New Jersey, or Riverside, California. So it's, we try and understand the market from that perspective, but our vendors that we work with on the valuation side have 50 to 65,000 agents that are local throughout the country that can have that local presence.
Awesome. We just talked about the value, though. With the value itself, Liz to Chaz to Rob, how are you proving value? Are you proving value? Are you trusting BPOs, or are you calling local agents?
I mean, it's really hard. It's really hard not to call a local presence and to kind of figure out, locally what that person thinks of actually driving by that property.
We hired new evaluations.
Yeah,
too.
but we also have third-party companies that also keep our BPO vendors honest, right? That have no affiliation with our BPO vendors, that we pay a separate fee to reconcile and kind of keep making sure that the addresses match, the appraisal pictures match, the comps are inside of 1 mile. It's very hard when you start looking at rural properties to stay inside of 1 mile, but that at least kind of gives us kind of a basis as to how we're trying to keep our vendors as honest as possible. But you're right, Dave. For us, because we have our own modeling that we back into, when we look at our modeling up against what our BPO vendors have provided us, our valuations up against what the BPOs are showing us have ran about a 4.2% variance between our value up against the BPO value. So we're okay there in terms of where we feel value is. I don't think you'll ever be as certain as we want it to be, but we try. But what do you think, Liz and Rob, in terms of how you guys kind of roll up your sleeves on that factor?
I'd like to add one thing about calling local agents versus going through a BPO service. What I've found, especially when you already own the loan, but you can use this strategy when you're under an LOI already. If the seller has committed the loan to you, then I think you can do this perfectly honestly. But you go to your realtor, you call a local realtor, and you say, in exchange for a listing, assuming that I do take this property to foreclosure, I'd really like some boots on the ground to give me an idea of what the property's worth, what the condition is. Let me know if you see a car in the driveway, if you think it's occupied, and take a look at the windows, the doors, make sure it's secure. Just let me know what's going on. And most of the time, I'd say 75 to 80% of the time, the realtor is going to really be hungry for that listing and give you basically an entire BPO for free in exchange for that listing, assuming you either go through with a quitclaim deed or you foreclose on the property and you have to list it after the fact. So that's not really scalable when you're buying 1,000 loans at a time. In those scenarios, you're going to go with the BPO vendor, and you're going to make sure that BPO vendor outputs to Excel so you can crunch all those numbers at once. But on the one-off, or maybe even a loan in that 1,000 loan trade that's giving you some trouble, you call up a local realtor and they'll be happy to help you. And it's always nice to have teed up contact local to that area ready.
Thanks, Rob. Liz, what's your 2 cents on that whole angle?
I think they both made great points. I especially like Robert's point of, if you can use a realtor, I mean, that's going to be your most accurate information. Find someone who is doing deals, actually selling properties within that zip code or in that area. Like you said, rural properties, you're kind of out of luck there sometimes. But you're going to get, they know the market, because the problem I have with BPOs is a lot of time it's not always a realtor who's experienced in that area. We pulled a property in University Park, which is about 45 minutes from Chicago. But the BPO we ordered was a realtor who works and lives in Chicago. So while they're able to pull comps, it doesn't mean that they actually know the local market. And that can cause problems, maybe like if they it's a specific pocket within that neighborhood. While there's comps within the mile radius that look legit, your street has like 4 gangbusters on it. The realtors can provide information that BPOs can't. But if you are doing bulk, it is very tedious to have to contact all these realtors. You're going to do the BPO route. So if that is the case, I would just suggest trying to pull 2 BPOs to compare. I know it is more costly and time intensive for you to kind of get those out there and crunch the numbers, but at least it can give you 2 valuations rather than just relying on one, which could be totally bonkers of a value. I've had BPOs that are just crazy off. So you just kind of have to trust into your own due diligence there. And if you can get a realtor, do it.
I have to add, definitely, realtors tell you a lot. You can have a realtor peek in the window if it's vacant, let you know what the entire inside looks like. And sometimes the realtor runs into a neighbor and gives you information you would never have known. That local hand, oftentimes, if I get on Zillow, I'll find an asset next door, and if it was sold, I'm gonna call that agent to find out what that house sold for and what happened, or find an agent who possibly, if the house was listed before, speak to the previous agent to tell you a little bit more about it. So, awesome. I want to get into collateral files. When we receive these collateral files and these assets at different levels, what are you doing with the collateral files? How are you reviewing them? Are you personally reviewing them? What are you doing with them? I'll go ahead, Liz. I'll let you start off.
Yeah.
So since I'm on a smaller scale, going through the collateral files, I actually have the availability and the time to do that. You know, on a much larger scale, to have to go through all that collateral, unless you have your own person that's assigned that task, it can be quite tedious. And also, every state and every county has different requirements. So unless you're like super well versed in all of the areas, you might miss something that's important in that specific state. So my best suggestion is, if you're new to this, or even if you just don't feel super confident in a new state or whatever it may be, talk to a local attorney or a company that can actually review the electronic collateral file or the actual hard collateral file for you. So we've outsourced our entire collateral file management to a third-party company. They handle all the assignment recordings. If there's any issues, they're the ones who rectify the issues. So I don't have to actually manage any of that. And for the preliminary portion, when I'm going through it online, I send it typically to my attorney to review. And I choose my attorney because they're more knowledgeable in that specific state versus the company who handles the collateral. Just looking over, they might miss something because they're not thinking about Ohio having a weird rule in that state or something like that. So that's what I do for my collateral.
Thanks. Rob, what do you do when you're getting seconds? Are you reviewing collateral yourself? Are you sending it out? Are you the attorney, custodians? What's your angle?
We, with U.S. Mortgage Resolution, we review all of our collateral in-house. We have a collateral manager who intakes all of the loans and basically creates a simple checklist: the note, the mortgage, the assignment, and the allonge. If you're a beginner in this, a note is transferred by your allonge, which is not recorded at the county, and the mortgage is transferred by the assignment. The mortgage and the assignment are both recorded at the county. So when you send that LOI that I mentioned, that letter of intent, one of your big contingencies is complete enforceable collateral with a full chain of title ending with your entity. So right off the bat, you're covering your bases. If the seller doesn't have those documents, you're off the hook. You don't have to close the deal. Furthermore, your loan sale agreement is then going to have representations and warranties as to the same: the note, the mortgage, the assignment, the allonge. The complete collateral file is intact. Most contracts will have a repurchase window of 30 to 60 days if the seller isn't able to put that collateral file together for you in that timeline. But if you really want to be safe, you can call a local attorney, like Liz said, and have them work as an escrow agent for you. So essentially, you send your money to them, you have the seller send their collateral files to them, and since they're experts in the geography, they'll review all of the collateral files and only release them when they've confirmed that everything is in order. So they act as a third party to transfer the cash and the notes. But I would say, getting started, to definitely try to review a collateral file yourself, because at some point or another, you're going to want to be used to the documents that you're looking at, the different names of a note, a mortgage, a security instrument, what all of these things actually are. But then once you scale, it's definitely a good idea to batch that task to a company like Richmond Monroe or a local attorney, or you can just hire a collateral manager.
I want to just jump in real quick. Who's storing your collateral files once you purchase them?
We have fire safe filing cabinets in our office. So they're in our office, which we found for selling loans to be super effective, because we're able to quickly look at the file, make sure we have everything in order without having that third person between us and the actual document. But it is important that you do have those fire safe filing cabinets that have a lock and key, because this paper is worth millions of dollars, and it's strange when you think about it that way, but you got to keep your collateral safe.
Make sure it's also waterproof as well. I used to
Yeah.
keep myself in a situation and it almost got bad. Before we go over to Claudia, Liz, do you also keep your stuff locally? Do you keep it with a custodian, with an attorney? What's your angle?
We use a custodian also, but we do have a fire safe filing cabinet in house. Weighs gosh, I want to say 1,000 pounds. It's heavy and very, very expensive. So it's not an easy thing to purchase and to have, but we had it for the pure control of having Richmond Monroe review all the files. And then what we'll have them do is after they reviewed everything, send us the reporting, but we'll go ahead and keep the houses in internal so that we can release them pretty quickly. But I did want to go back to what Robert said about reviewing the collateral and having our buyers, kind of know what to do. Is familiar yourself with the collateral links that we send you guys to view the files. Start getting familiar with a note, a title, estimated HUDs, good faith estimates, applications, anything in the folder that's going to help you figure out what this person is that you're buying, because you're buying a person along with their property. But, in that case, we also put it on our MLPA that we rep and warrant that you'll be able to have perfect chain of assignments. It may take us a couple of weeks to get something that might have been done as an error, but we rep and warrant that for the beginning of your whole process of getting that loan into your name, that it's coming from Granite and it's going to you, and we'll give you everything prior to that as far as assignments and chains, and it's warranted on our contracts. So I just wanted to bring that up too.
I'd like to add to that. Sorry, Claudia, but we've bought loans from them before, and we just recently purchased a loan that the assignment from the seller to Granite had just a small error, but they were able to execute the assignment from Granite to us. And I mean, the second the collateral was received and we realized that happened, they reached out to us already to say, hey, this is an error, we're working on it. The second we get it, we'll forward it with the collateral package. So just like they said, they can fix it. Most things are rectifiable, even if there is an issue in the chain of title, but you want to know that going forward, because it's going to take time, and it's going to, if you're outsourcing it, to find it and rectify it, it's going to cost money. So like they said, definitely know what you're looking at when you're going through it electronically, because most of the time it's hopefully the same thing electronically as it is in the hard copy. And yes, if you're doing small scale, to actually have your own fire safe is going to be so expensive. Those things are like a minimum $1,200 and go up from there. And unless you have also a place to store it, for me, that was like outsource or spend a lot of money on a fire safe I'm going to use for like 30 files.
Very good. Yes, I'm the same way. I stick myself with, if an attorney will do it for me, I'll let them hold on to it. Or I'll actually hand over to a custodian who will charge, I see Bob had mentioned one company doing $10 a year. I do $1 a month with Richmond, or I also know a servicer custodian who do $20 a year.
Orion is 25 cents a month.
There you go, 25 cents a month. With that, I don't want to get too deep into it. What's your input on bankruptcy files? How do you handle it? Just a brief overview. We don't want to get too much into bankruptcy, but what is your feeling about bankruptcy situations?
I guess the floor is open. I'll jump in. Bankruptcy is actually a great opportunity to get a lot more information about your borrower. If you pull up a voluntary petition, which is public record on PACER, P-A-C-E-R, Public Access to Court Electronic Records, you'll be able to review the whole history and docket of that bankruptcy proceeding. So starting with the voluntary petition, which gives you income and expenses and assets and their intention with those assets, whether they want to keep them or surrender the property in question. You'll get an estimate on the senior lien balance. You'll get an estimate on the property value. So it's actually a pretty good opportunity to really review all of that information before you buy. Now, I will always go with an expert to get a final opinion. I own a note personally in a bankruptcy Chapter 13. We're going through the adversary proceeding. So sometimes when you get into the minutia of it, you need that expert opinion to really take it home. But to get started, you can definitely review PACER yourself. And a lot of it is in plain English. Some of it you really do need to get accustomed to. And I'll give you one more tip. One thing you really want to look for is a motion for relief from stay. If the senior lien, if you're buying a junior and the senior lien has filed a motion for relief, the stay essentially is a pause on the foreclosure. So nobody can foreclose once a bankruptcy has been filed. And that's really why borrowers file bankruptcy, is to stop anybody from taking their property. But once the bankruptcy has stopped the foreclosure, it can be started again with a motion for relief from stay. So then you look on the order for the motion and you see if the court has allowed the senior lien or another lien holder to move forward with a foreclosure. So that's one thing. There's so much more. I'm not an expert by any means, so I would definitely recommend speaking with a local attorney on a bankruptcy account.
Thanks, Rob. We'll let Chad and Claudia, from your end, when you're buying large amounts, are you even looking at bankruptcy pacer stuff? Are you kind of briefing over it? What's your input?
I would say in 2010 and 11 and 12, the way bankruptcy was viewed has absolutely changed the way it is viewed in 2017. I felt that the market was still kind of facing a recession, and lenders were still facing people that were strategically defaulting on their mortgage, coupled with filing bankruptcy just to prolong the filing of the foreclosure. So bankruptcy back then was used as a shell, where I feel that more often than not, today's bankruptcy is actually used for us. We love them. And here's why we love them, is because, like Rob said, it's almost like, especially on a 13, I'm not getting a fully underwritten loan mod doc where I know your brother, your cousin, your sister. I know where everybody's at, what they make, what you don't make. I like knowing all that stuff when I'm buying a note and buying a loan. So for me, I like to know the forensics of what's going on, where they're working, how long they've been working, because if I can get them back to paying, because we do buy a lot of non-performing notes that do not have cash flow coming in on them. If I can buy a note that I can get cash flowing, I do want to know the employment history and the income and the ability to pay again if we gave you the option to stay. So with sevens, I also like sevens because it kind of lets me know their intention, right? 13 says, hey, I want to stay and pay, just work with me. 7 says, look, I just don't have the money and I'm ready to go. So I like them either way, because at least I know how I have a kind of a direct exit of how I'm going to get out of that deal if it's a 7. And if it's a 13, at least I know if I can get them back to paying, what it's going to take to get them back paying, and knowing what their net income is if I try and qualify them for a modification.
And if they stop paying, you get the motion for relief. So you get the courts already understanding they're not, they can't pay anymore, and, get the foreclosure kind of rapidly, start moving.
To speak on BK, I'm looking at the same things they are. It's definitely not something you brush over in your due diligence. Like they said, you want to know as much about your borrower as possible. So if you can find out that they're in bankruptcy, either Chapter 7 or Chapter 13, that's great. But what I found with my experience with BK is a lot of times I'm not buying the loans that are in BK. They become bankruptcy loans as I'm working them out, typically the week before we go to foreclosure sale. So that's pretty common. It's a stalling tactic, and understandably, if someone wants to keep their home, they're going to try everything they can to keep their home. But I would say if it's occupied by the borrower and there's possibly even been just a slight amount of resistance, or you still think they have a lot of emotional equity in the home, it's pretty likely it will go to bankruptcy, which is right before the foreclosure sale. So don't be surprised by that. And like they said, you need to know about the automatic stay or lift of stay in order to know how to proceed in the future. The last thing I guess I would say is bankruptcy also takes time, regardless of Chapter 7 or Chapter 13. Just know that you've just added at least a few months. If it's Chapter 13 and they do pay, you've added a substantial amount of time onto your workout. So it will change your total, like when you're expecting your payoff or the possible outcome. So just be prepared for everything. If your numbers don't work with every scenario, like including them paying on a BK, then it's not a good deal, because it's always an option.
Awesome. Foreclosure dockets. Are you diving into foreclosure dockets? Are you pulling them? Are you looking at them? Any means? Are you calling local attorneys to understand what's going on? From your different levels, where are you at? We'll start with Rob. What's your angle on with seconds with foreclosure dockets? How deep are you getting into foreclosure dockets when you're buying a second?
When we're buying in bulk, reviewing every foreclosure docket gets a little bit tedious, and to the point where it's prohibitively expensive and really especially time consuming to get a bid in at a good, before a deadline. You're not going to be able to review every single document. So what we'll typically do is order a trade. We'll price the trade first before really digging in. We'll put our ballpark, pricing matrix across the whole entire portfolio, and then we'll sort that portfolio by our most expensive loan to our least expensive loan. And when we start looking in that sense, we can quickly, the 80-20 rule. You want to put as much, as little amount of effort for the most amount of result. So you look at those more expensive assets, and when necessary, you can look at public records to see if a lis pendens has been filed, and you can dig in, especially with the bankruptcy, and see so much more. So to tell you the truth, if you're buying in bulk, it's going to be, quite an undertaking. But as a one-off, I would certainly recommend getting as much information as possible from the seller or from third-party sources about the status and progress of any senior lien foreclosure.
Claudia, what do you guys do with foreclosure dockets? Are you pulling the county records? Are you speaking to attorneys?
Well, that's what I was going to tell you. We do buy in bulk. Unfortunately, we don't have that flexibility to be able to go and individually call every attorney that's taking the case right now. So we kind of take the the seller's comments, and we kind of go on that, and we're fortunate enough that we buy in bulk that it doesn't affect us that much to not have to dig in. But as a seller of loans to one-off buyers and pool level buyers, we have no problem of you guys digging into the file, calling the attorney. That's something that I know a lot of people, a lot of sellers, I hope no one from Condor is on here, but I know at Condor, they don't let you do anything as far as calling the actual attorney. Obviously, you can never call the borrower until you own that loan, and your servicer, whoever your licensed person is, can call them. But until then, as far as going deep into foreclosure, you're more than welcome on any of our files that we send you to ask us where the foreclosure status is at that point, and we can pull something from either Lendstar or some kind of system where we can send you guys that data information, or we'll give you the freedom to go ahead and reach out to that attorney so that you feel more comfortable purchasing the asset from us. If that's
Liz, what's your feeling about foreclosure dockets? Are you calling local attorneys? Are you discovering the information? Are you able to find foreclosure information online for some of the newer investors?
So again, every county is different. I try and just, like I said, use public records as much as possible. A lot of times they will have, if at least the lis pendens been filed, that it's in motion. That there will be some type of attorney that you could eventually reach out to find out what's going on if it's not available already on the public records. But no, I'm not exactly going to the foreclosure docket. I'm just trying to find out what is available in public records, if it's available at all. Sometimes that's not available. And if I buy a loan and I find out it has been in foreclosure and, I can pick back up, great, that's a bonus. But if you can't find that information, just prepare yourself accordingly and know that you might be the one taking the cost and the time expenditure.
All right. Two more of my own questions, and then we'll open up to chat as well as group here. More really for Rob. Credit reports. First Base doesn't typically pull credit reports. I've been yelled at that I should start doing it. It gives us great information. It is not part of my due diligence checklist. Tell us a little bit about where do you run them? What do you look for on them? And where do you get them from?
So yeah, we're authorized to order credit through TransUnion. So I do, help investors when necessary. If you own an asset or you have authorization from the seller, we do have permissible use as an investor to order credit reports. So I do have access to order credit, and you can definitely talk to me about helping you out there. But yeah, we'll pull credit on every single second lien because it is so important. Not only do you get public records and employment information and previous addresses, but you get every single debt that they've had. I mean, medical debts and credit card debts. And what you can kind of start to do as you look through these trade lines, each loan, a car loan or a credit card or a medical debt is a trade line on this report. you can kind of get a sense of who this borrower is. You can see what kind of car they drive if they have a car loan. You can see if they're living above their means or if they're having difficulty making ends meet. And you can start to develop that that qualitative information while you're gaining the quantitatives. The senior lien balance, the past due amount, the pay string. You can see how consistent they are, and even just a simple thing as a pay string. So a pay string is ideally 12 ones, because a 1 means that borrower was current on their senior lien. A 2 is 30 days late, a 3 is 60 days late, so on and so forth. If you see all 1s and then it turns to a 2 and then a 3 and then a 4, you know that some event took place 3-4 months ago that set that borrower on a downward course. So little things like that, simple string of numbers, can start to give you an idea of what questions you're going to ask the borrower when you get in touch with them, and what kind of situation you might have to be prepared to help them resolve. So I agree, Dave, credit reports may be something you'd like to start doing in first position as well, but it's so much more important in second. In fact, it's imperative. So I would definitely recommend.
Liz, are you pulling credit reports at all? Claudia, are you guys pulling credit reports?
No, we're not. But I'm with Tim. I've multiply heard at many conferences that on seconds it is crucial to pull credit.
But we will. But we will, Dave, because moving forward, Granite's going to begin to retain a lot more cash flowing loans that we can use a refinance as our takeout. Right now, there's been some pretty cool creative programs that the FHA has come out with. One of them being the FHA 203B program, which allows 90 days only worth of the payments coming in before a new lender will take you or us out as the investor at 100 cents.
100, yeah.
So imagine you buy a non-performing loan at 55 cents and you get that borrower to reperform and begin to pay again. You only need that borrower to pay for 3 months, and then you can use a new FHA refinance as a takeout and get paid out at 100 cents. It's decent exits for us. So in the future, we are going to begin pulling on credit so we can kind of see how our borrowers can qualify for that refinance program. So right now, no, we will.
Yeah.
Great nugget. Thank you.
Is the company too.
And I was going to add to that I don't pull it when I'm doing my due diligence, but eventually, like they said, if they're qualifying for a potential program, like we've done hardest hits funds and just FHA refinance for some of our borrowers that have been paying for refinance out, you're going to have to pull credit at that point. So I would suggest if you think they might qualify for it, or you're getting close to a pay string that you can utilize those services or those programs, that you work with someone who is able to pull that credit. Because I'm sure, Robert, and you might speak to this, but you have to become an approved vendor with these companies that are able to pull credit. They actually have to come to your home. They have to inspect the office, make sure you have a lock on your door, that you have a filing cabinet for all your files. So there's things you have to do to qualify for this, just even to be able to pull the credit in the first place. So unless it's something that's like imperative to your company, which if you're on a small scale, I don't think it really would be, Granite and Robert obviously would have that need, but coming from someone who's buying 6 to 10 loans a month or a quarter, I don't think it's that necessary.
I'm in the same boat you are. I agree. Last thing I'm going to open up the questions are, what was your biggest due diligence miss? And what was your best due diligence find on a deal? So give me a deal that either one of them, pick one of them. What due diligence you used that was a great find, or you missed and you learned your lesson?
I'll give you one of each really quick. So the biggest miss, I talked about this at a conference in January in New Jersey. We bought a vacant lot in Oregon. It was about 11 acres, and there was a $300,000 senior position loan that we purchased secured by the property. Going in, we thought it was all good, and we were going to, have a pretty great payoff of maybe around 50%. At the bare minimum, we would settle for $150,000, and that's how we priced the asset. We buy the loan, we start doing a little bit more research, and turns out the Department of Environmental Quality had released a phase 1 on the property several years prior. So because we didn't catch that small piece of due diligence we were left with a property that had groundwater contamination and cadmium in the soil. And it apparently had been like an auto scrap yard for a short time. And the rubber tires and the oil tanks just completely destroyed the property. It turned out we did well on the deal. We were able to flip it to a developer in the area who was comfortable with the environmental quality issues. So that one did work out. But you never know sometimes, and you don't know what you don't know. So even just Googling the property address, you'll probably find something that you might have otherwise missed. And now on the other side, a windfall is a situation where the seller thinks they have an unsecured loan. So we bought a loan from PNC Bank, and they had it priced as unsecured. Everything that they had led them to believe that the senior lien or a tax lien had foreclosed, taken title to the property, and our junior lien that we wanted to purchase was no longer secured to that physical real estate. Turned out it was secured, and we were able to sell a loan we purchased for $1,200 for $70,000. So that's one benefit of buying in bulk and buying on your own terms, because you can kind of build in some arbitrage occasionally when the seller's information, you might be able to gather more accurate or more up-to-date information that allows you to make a bit of a spread, or a huge spread if you get lucky. But that's far from typical most of the time.
Liz, what was your either one, or if you want to get both real quick?
Yeah, so our
No granted examples at all.
they're not. So that would suck. Oh, there's one loan with granite. Oh, no. So one of the best one that we had that was I guess on the positive light was the seller had awful BPO. It was super inaccurate. They thought it was worth like $58,000. And from my research, I knew bare minimum, like copper ripped out, totally trashed, it could sell for $90,000. So I bid pretty aggressively on the loan because I knew confidently it was worth that. And it ended up selling 3 months later, because also it was in foreclosure, but it stopped because of a BK, and I was able to pick right back up. It took like not even 30 days to go to foreclosure sale. So it ended up being like a lot of positive lights there. And we ended up selling for $126,000, and we bought the loan for $38,000. So it ended up being a killer deal because I knew that the seller had the wrong BPO in my due diligence.
Great job, Liz. Great job.
And then, can I show the negative one? Because this was the big
Go
one for
ahead.
me. Okay. So this just actually recently happened. We kind of just rectified. I got a text while we were doing this that everything's clearing up. But we bought a loan in Georgia that when we pulled the O&E, it said that the taxes were paid, and I did not call to verify with the county, which was a big no-no, and now I know that. But I bought it on October 31st, and November 1st, it went to tax deed sale. Yeah, just a day. So luckily in Georgia, there is a redemption period of 1 year, so I'm okay. And the tax deed buyer actually contacted us and wanted to negotiate. They want to buy it from us, so we don't have to finish the foreclosure. They're just going to buy it outright. We're going to get rid of the debt, and they're going to, we don't have to worry about taking title or anything. So it's going to end up turning out okay. It's not the sweetest deal in the world, and it was like really scary when it all came to light, but the county.
And Claudia, at your level, what due diligence thing did you guys either hit a home run with that you found, or you missed and you learned a lesson?
Well, because we buy in bulk, huge bulk, we have a lot more misses. And the misses, unfortunately can be anything from the O&E remark that Liz said, is that a lot of those O&E companies, they are an owner and encumbrance. They're not, fully, what's it called? Yeah, so there's a tendency of them pulling up taxes, and taxes are paid. Well, they don't know who paid them. So we actually had a property that showed that taxes were paid in full, and little did we know that they had hired a company. And this was a Texas loan, which is a big state for everybody to buy. There were 5 years of taxes that were paid by an outside third party, 5 years. Of a total of maybe $68,000. The house was worth maybe about $150,000. So we've had to actually buy that back because our downstream buyer caught it. So we bought that back from them and pretty much handed the property taxes over to the people that had bought it. There was no way we could redeem it and actually make any money on it. We also had a property where, a Rhode Island property, we bought 224 Leah Street. We actually found out that 226 Leah Street was the real property we had bought. So the picture of 224 was gorgeous, but 226 Leah Street was a lot. So we bought the lot. We did not buy the actual land and property. So we've had several things like that. Our misses are that we had a really bad.
Those are your misses. Those are your mess ups. Those are.
Yeah, we messed up because of the.
I thought those were our home runs.
No. No, we actually. I was going to say one of our bad ones was we had a bad BPO, but Liz, I hope that wasn't the one that you made out on. We've had BPOs. We've had BPOs where they've come in really low, and our downstream buyer ended up flipping them and selling them for $100,000 more than they bought it from us. Those to us really aren't losses, because at the same time, guess what that buyer just got? He got more money to come back and buy from us. So that's always
Great job.
the home run to us is better.
It's repeat clients.
It's repeat clients.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we actually open it, I want to actually let Liz and Rob kind of quickly share what your business is and what you can offer the investors out here due diligence. Liz, I'll let you describe TapeText and what the power of it can do when you're trying to figure out if you want to buy it or not.
So, especially if you're going to be starting off small, I mean, kind of talking more about my past, I am still a full-time teacher. I teach kindergarten. This is my last year. Actually, I'm done in 14 days. Whoop, whoop, I was counting. So I will be leaving teaching at the end of these 14 days, and we're going to be traveling full-time for notes now. So we have an RV, and we're going to be traveling on the RV full-time. But my point here was when I was starting in notes, I was doing this by myself and working my job full time. And it's just a lot. Like, you're going to start getting tapes, you're going to start getting grant tapes and other, possibly if you're working with seconds from Robert, wherever it may be from, and you have to go through this as fast as possible. So that you can actually get the bids that are worthwhile within the tape, or get your bids at an aggressive price. So if you're working or you come home from a long day of work, the last thing you want to do is stay up till 12 o'clock at night doing tapes. So being able to actually outsource that is crucial. So I have the system. If you go to tapetext.com, you literally upload your tape. We provide you with everything that you would need to make your bid as quickly as possible. This is only the preliminary stage. But what we do is we actually look in Google Maps or on the appraiser to verify the property's condition. So we actually insert a picture of the property into your tape so you can see what it looks like. We verify if there's any delinquent taxes online. Remember, everything is available online. If it's available, we provide that for you. We actually check in Pacer for the bankruptcy. We look if there's liens and judgments in public records. We actually give you our current market value based on 3 comps, and we provide you with those comps into the spreadsheet as well. So you actually get your value, you get the condition, you get the crime rate, you're going to get the borrower's name if it's available online, which it should be, but you're going to get everything you pretty much need in a spreadsheet, and we can return this to you in 24 hours if necessary, or if it's a larger pool, 50 assets or more, we do require a 48 to 72 hour turnaround time. And it's pretty much pay per asset, so you can submit 1 asset to us, or you can submit 50. So just the other night, I came home on Tuesday. I was exhausted, and I got a new tape, and I really wanted to go through it, but it was like already 9 o'clock, and that's the last thing I want to do when I wake up at 5 in the morning to go teach 5-year-olds. So I just submitted it to my virtual assistants with on TapeText. I did the whole process, and I have my completed tape, and I've already scrubbed it down to the 3 assets I'm making my bids on, and I've submitted my bids, and I didn't have to do any of the work. So I utilize our own service, but I think it's great for other investors too.
And Liz, when you're pulling those comps, are you pulling them from, I guess, public sites? And how do you decide which comps are pulling?
Yeah, so that's a great question, because comps are the number one thing you're looking at is your value. So if you don't have your, sorry, Claudia, you just made me laugh. So if you don't know what your value's at, you could be buying a severely poor asset. So we've trained our virtual assistants. We have one VA who her sole job is to find CMV. She's really good at it. But she has been trained to find it based on the current conditions. So she takes into factors like the bedroom and bathroom size, the square footage, and she actually looks at the exterior photo. If it looks like a piece of crap house that has broken windows and the neighborhood's a piece of crap, she's finding comps that are comparable to that. She's not going to find something that's renovated. So she really knows how to actually find things that are truly comparable. And they do use public sites, but we really try not to use like ePraisal or the Zillow estimate. She actually finds sold properties within 6 months. Again, if it's rural, you're going to have some challenges. You might have to go out of a like mile radius, or you may have to go back 12 months. But most of the time we can find you 3 comps that are actually similar. And then we just give you the value or the average value of those 3 comps.
Awesome. Rob, with your business, Fixed Notes, can you describe a little bit, which is a little bit different from what Liz does? Share what Fixed Notes does for us.
Certainly. So I'm more on the back end side. So Liz does a lot of the preliminary due diligence and research with her virtual assistants very quickly and in bulk. What I do is a very fine tooth look at the loan and turn your collateral file, which, as you know, it's got Post-its and notes all over it, and then a stack of files that's probably in whatever order the seller decided it was in. What I do is I standardize them into one of these with color-coded sections for all of your different crucial data points. And then these sections are essentially summary pages, which then house all of your collateral documents that are related to that section. So asset vitals is going to be your note, your mortgage, your assignment, and your launch, due diligence, management, and legal and bankruptcy. And then there's, contact logs and everything. So this product is the best use case that I've found for it is when you're selling a reperforming loan. So say you buy a non-performing loan from Chaz and Claudia, and you work it out, and that borrower is paying now, but you want to sell it. You want to buy some more loans. You want to, put your capital back to work. What I can do for you is turn your unorganized collateral file into a retail experience for a buyer who maybe has no idea what a note even is. But when they read through these, these summary sections, they can see here's the property, here's the borrower, here's what's, the debt that's secured by these, assets. You're able to flip that loan to, say, a self-directed IRA client who has capital just sitting there. They want to put it to work, or to any note buyer who's looking for passive returns. So that's what I do on the due diligence side. For the most part, though, Fixed Notes is a consultancy that can be flexible to what you need as an investor. My biggest client is the company I started out in this business with, U.S. Mortgage Resolution. So now I do their bulk due diligence, which, by the way, Liz, I'm definitely going to talk to you about tape techs because I'm tired of all of the, the minutia of the due diligence. But then on the other side, I also run a brokerage. So like I mentioned in the beginning of this call, fixednotes.com/inventory. I have the masked data, which means you're not going to get the borrower names or the property addresses until you sign a non-disclosure agreement. But you'll get all of the summary information on a number of loans. I have about 40 second liens for sale right now. So I help sellers. I'm basically similar to what Chaz and Claudia are doing with Granite, bringing liquidity to the market. So if you have loans that you need to sell or you want to buy loans, I help through my network and experience, I help facilitate those transactions. And then, of course, I'm still working with U.S. Mortgage Resolution. So I'm offering those loans for sale as well. And they have primarily senior liens. So I'd be happy to talk to you about either juniors or seniors.
All right. So I'm going to dive into the online question before we open up here. One of the first questions came up was from Bob Malecki. He asked about the fact that there's a little more than $300 billion in distressed debt on the books to be sold on the secondary market. ATTOM data shows about 990,000 extremely delinquent. Chaz and Claudia, what's your take on that, which is in the chat window if you want to look at the chat window?
So you got it right there.
Yeah, I was actually going to respond to that, Bob. I may have a little bit of.
Yes. You.
There we go. I would say that it's that's low.
Trillion.
I think I still know that we're in the trillions in terms of delinquent debt still in the market. You may need to be but in regards to the current available inventory,
Dave, mute.
oh yeah. I mean, I really think, though, that if the majority of the market truly knew how much available inventory was still out there, I think it would scare quite a lot of us to know really how much delinquent paper still left to kind of get through, knowing that we've been kind of coming up on the 10-year mark since the crisis last hit us. We're still in the trillions. So when I see 900 million or 330 billion, I would say that's probably between two lenders. And I would know that at least another 7 to 10 major lenders own the bulk of the majority of the product. I mean, take Fannie and Freddie and HUD combined, which own 1 out of every 2 mortgages in our country. And they are on a 10-year liquidation pace that started in 2011. So they're 5 years, 6 years in, but they've kind of taken a halt now since the new Trump administration has taken over. They haven't done and conducted a sale since the new regime's kind of taken run. So HUD still hasn't made a sale here yet in 2017. So I would say we still have. It was so funny. I got asked this question in January when I got into the space of how long do you really think this window is still available? And in 2007, I was told 3 years. And then 2010, I was told another 3 years. So, here we are in 2017. I would be foolish to tell you another 3 years. I still think it's quite a while. And if you use that non-QM product I've been telling you that they're creating again, which is stated income, stated assets, no income, verified assets, and you're going down as low as 510 FICOs and you're giving people new loans, you're giving your barber his $500,000 house that he can't afford. Here we are all over again. So I still think that if you guys are, Liz has brought a lot of loans from us. So is Rob. We've worked with Rob. Joe Downs is his guy. We all work with each other. And to know that we're still all here years and years later, still growing this thing. I think if you're coming into the space, I think there's a lot of new things that most of you are learning that can keep you on the sidelines and won't let you get into the playing field. But I'll tell you, just look at your first deal, make your first purchase, make sure it's obviously do your due diligence, which is kind of what we're centered around and talking about tonight. But once you kind of double checked and cross checked using tape decks and using other measures in terms of value, title, and tax to verify that you got a good deal, make it happen. Because I guarantee this will be the last new venture that you'll stay away from. This will be something that could become a new career. I mean, take Liz, for example, full-time teacher that's now becoming a full-time investor. And I mean, Liz, we were talking in January on when that was going to happen. And now that you have a timeline, it's like, it's exciting to see. Now I hope that you and I are doing a lot more deals together, a lot more time to roll up your sleeve. And we enjoy this. We enjoy getting new investors out there in New Jersey, like you guys are listening to come onto the playing field to work with us, and then us do deals together 4 or 5 years from now. That's the goal. We want to make sure we keep you safe. For us, we built this company on repeat clients, but you only get repeat clients when clients go out there and make money. They go out there and they spin their wheels and they don't make no money, they're not going to come back. It's that simple. So
and don't be scared to dig into our due diligence and play around, and then maybe even call us a month later and say, hey, what did that loan end up selling for? I've had buyers do that before they'll pull the trigger because they're just curious to know that did I make a bad decision by not buying it? Did I find out that loan ended up selling in an REO within 3 months? And that guy bought a loan for $20,000 and sold it for $60,000 and made $40,000 in 2 months. You got to just dig in and start looking. That's really how you're going to find out how this whole business works. Oh. We are muted? We are.
Yeah. You're muted, Dave.
I apologize. With junior liens from Patty Pitt, how can you look up junior liens when you're buying your first and judgments during your due diligence stage without purchase of the O&E report? Can you look that things up in the county reports?
Well, you'll see public records on your credit report. So if you are speaking specifically to junior liens, when you pull that credit, you'll see a section called public records, where you will get some information on judgments or tax liens or other scenarios that may affect you. But at the end of the day, the O&E is really going to be your best bet to get all the information and the actual documents. So the thing about a credit report, it's just the credit report, the data from the bureau. You're not getting the mortgage documents and the lis pendens documents. But when you order title from, I'll give a shout out to Alex Goldofsky at Pro Title USA. We use them all the time. They'll give you all of the documents that are included in that report. So you can actually, trust the automated data that they provide, and they also put it all in Excel. So when you're reviewing a mass data tape, you can get all that information back on your tape. But then you can also verify that information by looking through the actual lis pendens and the actual, warranty deed from the seller to your borrower, right as part of your due diligence. But to answer the rest of Patty's question about how much to spend on due diligence per file, senior liens are definitely going to be a lot more expensive because you're pulling BPO and title pretty much every time. With junior liens, you can get away with less than $100 of due diligence per loan. In fact, I think, if you're just pulling credit, that's going to be less than $10. You can get away with starting with just credit and then internet values, online automated valuations, and that'll give you a really great start for about $10 a loan. But like I said, with senior liens, $200 a loan is even that would be inexpensive to get title, taxes, BPO, and everything you need to.
And I think I want to jump in there. I'm sure Liz will add, all this stuff can be found online as well. You just look at the clerk records. Every county has it. You can find all the kind of recordings most of the time that we find online. So that could be one way to get free information, but it's not always accurate, nor does it always have the information or easy to find. Sometimes there's all kinds of paid sites out there and whatnot. So, Liz, do you have anything more to add to that? Find free information online?
I would say if it's online, I don't know if you guys know this website, but NETR Online, NETR online.com. You can literally search by city and state or by zip code, and it'll tell you the county, and then it provides you with all of the county's websites. So the public records, the tax appraiser, if there's a city and county tax, it'll tell you that. But I like to utilize that website because it tells me right away if there's no information online, for the county, or maybe you need a subscription. So it'll just tell you that right up front, so you don't have to waste your time. But that's my only 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I second that. Netro Online is an awesome resource. And
just text it in the chat window for anyone who needs help with that. I know the other question was about the 203B. So Liz, you have something to add? Liz, did you have something to add? Oh, you're muted. Liz? We can't hear you.
Okay, never mind.
Oh, okay. One of the questions was about the 203B. Is there a floor? Bob was asking about a value of what they're willing to give money on.
I believe it's 50, but I think it's also volume based. So I think if it's just there's some equity. So Bob, 50 grand, we'll do it. I think anything below 50 grand, I think we have a little bit of stipulation. I think it just depends on volume.
Liz, I got you back.
Okay.
There you go.
I was just telling you, Dave, you got to mute.
I saw the sign language.
Oh, well.
Okay. Oh, we lost, give me 1 second to get Claudia back here. Oops. All right. So I want to get to the next question on here. And I'm going to actually go to the room for a few minutes, see if anyone, there's any other questions we have currently that's anything written down that you want to ask about in the room here. The question was, do you go into the note knowing your exit strategy?
You should certainly have a good idea. You're never going to know exactly what's going to happen, but to at least forecast what you expect to happen is really the only way to price a loan. If it's a reperforming loan, you're going to price your current yield, and whatever you pay has to fit your model. When you're buying a non-performer, you have to see all of your potential exit strategies. If you're going to go the path of least resistance and just get a discounted payoff with the borrower, you got to see what that discounted payoff number might look like based on the equity, what would make sense to the borrower. But then on the other side, if you're going to be getting into a payment plan, you have to be comfortable with the amount that you'd accept in that payment plan by looking at local rent comps and then deducting, if you're buying a second, deducting the value of the senior lien, taxes and everything so that you can understand how much is left over that would still fall into a general market range for that geography. There's, take it, yeah, I want to pass this one on to you guys. Keep going.
I think he said that perfectly. You can't, you can go in with an intention, but you have to be prepared for all exit strategies, kind of like I touched on earlier. There's always a chance that they're going to pay again. There's always a chance they might fight the foreclosure, or you just need to know that in all exit strategies, it's going to work. So I run my numbers for my I purchase it based on the cost if I have to foreclose, so that I have the highest expenses possible and know that my yield still works. And then from there, I also make sense, like you said, for the yield as if they were paying now. So I run my numbers in both scenarios and make sure they work. If they work, you buy it. But I would very rarely does my intention of my exit strategy end up being what really happens. So just you have to know that you're going to be flexible with your notes.
All right. One of the questions was from Christine Fuller was the soft collateral complete that is sent to you after you make the bid is accepted, or is it often missing things and you have to wait until the funding to get the physical collateral?
No,
definitely.
soft collateral.
I can answer. Oh, go ahead.
No,
Okay. I was going to tell you, so things have changed a lot in the last couple of months. People wanted to start seeing the collateral up front. If you have a custodian and they're willing to sign what is known as a Bailey letter, we're willing to send that original collateral on the terms that they have the original collateral. They're responsible for that collateral, and it can be reviewed, manually. We also do have reporting from our custodians that we can send you guys, letting you know what's in the file. Scan copies of the files if you guys want to actually see what we own. You could do that too, but we do not deliver an original collateral until that wire is received internally.
I think want to add to it, what she's asking is if it's missing something electronically, what should she do? The electronic files showing something missing.
Right. So is this after she's purchased it? Of course.
I believe it's prior to it. Christine, if you can add to it, are you saying that before you buy, you see something missing? What do you do? Because if it's missing something, I let the seller know previously, and I won't buy it until I know it's full.
Right, and it all depends on what they're missing at the same time. Really, if they're missing, just say like an original note or obviously assignments, that's pretty much the only thing that they can really come back and say is missing. But we'll do everything in our power to find something if it happens to be, the HUD or the 1003, little small documents that were in the origination docs. A lot of times the origination docs they're not completely in the file when we buy them. So we can't pass that on. If I can't find it, I can't find it, but we'll do everything in our power to locate those missing docs for you after purchase. If that's what she meant.
And there are workarounds. We actually had a trade with the bank, with U.S. Mortgage Resolution. We bought a couple hundred assets, and there was 5 file boxes that were coming to our office, and only 4 showed up. So we literally lost an entire file box full of collateral, and the bank didn't insure it with FedEx. So I tried to make a claim for $2 million, and they said, we'll give you $10. So that didn't work. But we were able to recreate those collateral files. And when you have a good relationship with your seller, you can have affidavits signed for a lost note. You can have the assignment chain reconstructed. And because the mortgage is a recorded document, you have the original copy on record with the county. So in the very worst case scenario that you do lose loans, you lose that physical file, the lien is still in existence. You just have to be creative to put it back together again. And we did miss, we missed one question from Chris about pricing by asset, non-performing versus performing. I would say yes, 6 months would be considered performing, but I would go further than that and say even 3 months could be considered performing if the borrower is on an ACH plan and they're making consistent payments and there's equity. You really have to, you have a gut feel about a deal if a borrower is going to keep paying or not. But then again, to be absolutely safe, you want to have a seasoned loan of 6 to 12 months to make sure they're consistent.
You said ACH. For those who are not familiar, what's ACH mean? Or what did
Clearinghouse, I think, is what it stands for. But essentially, it's just an automated withdrawal from their bank every month so that they're consistent and there's no missed payments.
Most of the questions here are being answered. They were looking good.
The lost note affidavit question. No, it's not a negative if there's a missing note. However, I'm actually dealing with a situation in Florida right now where because of the fact that we have a lost note affidavit, we don't have the original note, we have to fly down to Florida to the court hearing. Fortunately, I don't have to do it. One of the partners at USMR is going to make the trip. But so I kind of maybe take back what I said. Maybe you do want to price it a little less.
I would like to add to that too, Robert, especially with Florida, the fact that you mentioned it's Florida. That's we've run into the problem in the past where if it's a lost note affidavit and the borrower fights the foreclosure, if you have a borrower-friendly judge, they technically could say that you purchased a lost note affidavit. You didn't actually purchase the note. So you kind of have to be careful. I would definitely adjust my price if there was a lost note affidavit or a lost mortgage affidavit in a judicial state. In a non-judicial state, I don't think you have as much to worry about. But judicial states like foreclosure or like Florida, I would definitely adjust. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. It was just such a good point.
Just going off more of the chat was, do you have an internal review the statute of limitations as part of the due diligence to make sure the note is valid? I think statute of limitations is something thrown around a lot, but really does not affect us because you'd be amazed how far out statute of limitation applies and what it applies to. So without getting too legally into that, what's your quick input about statute of limitations, anything you've heard or concerns you have with it?
Well, while we're talking about Florida, another terrible situation in Florida, they started calculating the statute of limitations from the maturity date. So we were essentially uncollectible on a loan because the maturity date was outside of 5 years. So in situations like that, there's really nothing you can do. But for the most part, the clock starts ticking either the borrower's last payment date or their date of default. So if you have those figures from the bank, if you have the charge-off dates or the last payment dates, you can kind of run a quick formula in Excel to give you a quick flag, whether or not it's in stat or out of stat. So if you Google statute of limitations by state, you can see a little matrix of promissory notes and see each state how many years after the date of default or the last payment date that statute of limitations is triggered. So then if you create a little Excel grid, and this might be getting a little too technical. It's not legalese, but it's Excel VLOOKUP. Google VLOOKUP because it's an incredible tool when you're analyzing loans, and you can essentially create a matrix of every state and every statute of limitations amount. and then you can extrapolate your final end date based on your little grid using the VLOOKUP formula. Email me about it. I'll give you the whole tutorial.
All right. Kathy was asked the question, but most states go off the written contract statute for a state. Majority of states I know does. I think there was one out there that does not go off a written contract, but we can definitely look more into that. Was there any more questions in the room before we start closing up? No? All right. Chaz and Claudia, I want you guys to let us know, since you guys are still selling loans. I'm still seeing tapes from you guys, a little bit about what you guys put out, how much you expect to put out, and I guess always a big question is, what kind of pricing are we expecting in the next year or so?
So with that said, right now, guys, we're currently kind of rolling up our sleeves on our second larger fund of this year, where we're going to be raising quite a bit of capital to kind of attack some deals that we've recently been seeing from some GSEs, Fannie, Freddie, and HUD. So we're going to be very active on the buy side over the next few months, but we're going to be just as active on the sell side. So I would say on the sales side, we'll be putting out north of 100 loans monthly through the rest of the year. And right now, we're kind of averaging between 1 to 2 offerings a month. We're kind of trying to average 2. We'll at least be doing 1 a month. So at least you guys are seeing consistent new portfolios from us. We've been very active on our purchases early part of this year. We're going to continue that over the next 60, 90 days. But I guess in terms of what we're going to be showing, historically with Granite, because we've done north of 7,000 of these acquisitions, we haven't done a lot of cash flowing loans that we showed out, because a lot of the stuff that we purchased was not performing. A lot of the investors at the time that were working with us loved the non-performing asset. But what we've seen is we begin to see a lot more demand for cash flow and a lot more demand for yield. And a lot of guys, which I always ask new time investors that are coming in is, what's your goal? Are you looking to grow your capital, or are you looking for cash flow and yield? And that will let me know at least what I can begin to show you. But in terms of what we're going to begin showing, it's going to be kind of a bifurcation between non-performing loans and reperforming loans. They'll be located nationally. I would say the average BPO, average property value, is going to fall between $75,000 and $125,000. Sure, there's going to be outliers, both higher valued stuff and lower valued stuff, to allow you guys as a newer time investor to come in and still be able to acquire your first deal. We are seeing discounts off of the market value as great as 50, even sometimes 60% off of market value. Kind of gives you a little bit of an indication as to where pricing is going to be. But look, I think for us, we're trying to go higher up the food chain in terms of our sources. So we're trying to buy higher up from larger banks and larger lenders that are originating this paper, that are sitting on some defaulted loans that they need to get rid of. We are that outlet for those banks. So it's free to get signed up with us. It's free to always ping her and I in terms of texts, calls, emails. We're always available for you. But granitestrategic.com is a very easy way to sign our NDA, start seeing our monthly pool offerings, and get you guys off the sidelines and into the playing field with us.
Awesome. So I would definitely ask Chaz or Claudia to add your email addresses or your way to get your tapes online in the chat window. Also, Rob, do you have any last points to your company, where you can find you at, what kind of pricing your due diligence cost is?
Yeah, sure. So the due diligence thing, that I think I can talk offline about. It's $200 to $400 for a complete review of your file. But what I'm more excited about is brokering assets and adding this liquidity to the market. So once again, fixnotes.com/inventory, definitely check that out. And we can talk about not just actually closing a deal, but getting you up to speed on the due diligence process. Because I can send you the Dropbox with all of the collateral documents, and you can start looking at notes, looking at mortgages, and getting yourself familiar with the process.
All right. Awesome. Liz, and final part for yourself. I know you're always looking for funding partners, pulling more deals in. We're seeing a lot of inventory recently, as well as your company. It's easy for new investors to come in there, plug their information in, and get everything out they need for it to make a decision.
Sure. So if you're interested in the due diligence services, again, I put my website already into the link, but I'll add it again. That's tapetex.com. But again, like you mentioned, I do invest for our own portfolio using private money. So if you have anything in your IRA that you're wanting to put to use or anything in a savings account, we're always looking for new funding partners, and we are actively purchasing new deals. This month we're closing on 6 alone. So we're definitely always looking for more. So I'll put my contact info in here as well.
Wonderful. And we run this meetup twice every second Wednesday of the month. Same time, we cover different topics. We're always looking for new topic ideas. Next month, we're looking at doing attorneys or custodians. We're always looking for feedback. Also, as you can see before, you can go check out the Facebook page I also have a Facebook group that we all comment on and talk about things and make suggestions on, ask questions about attorneys. We're also looking into creating a series where we'll be allowing investors of all different sizes, shapes, and dollar amounts to come take a look at myself and 2 other active investors run through a tape that we receive. Obviously, NDAs are need to be received, and also understanding of what we're looking at. You'll be able to watch over our shoulder as we go through things and see what we see, but at the same time, understand how we're thinking in different ways, because we all look at deals differently. So stay tuned for that. If you are interested in that, please let me know. And we're always looking for that. Final parts we want to get into. I'm going to launch a poll real quick. And if you have any additional questions, just let me know. All right. Hope all is well. We thank you very much, guys, for joining us, and I appreciate it. And we look forward to speaking to you soon.
Thanks for having us, Dave.
Thank you, Dave.
Take
Bye.
care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. As we start losing participants here, I'll let it run for a minute. All right. So thank you very much, guys, coming out to the meetup. I'm going to definitely open any kind of question you have for me directly. We are always raising money. We actually have a bunch of deals in the pocket right now that we're looking to fund. And then more money, we can actually buy more deals. We are seeing a lot of inventory recently. First space is something I primarily look at. MJ and some other fellows here are in second space. So if you are interested in learning that kind as well, I'm more than welcome to talk to these guys and experience it. Also look to each other. If you have funds and you want to try diving into it together, go for it. We're here to help. The more information we get, the more deals we get, the more information we can share with each other and experiences. So if there's any additional questions, feel free to stay afterwards and go from there. Let's make some deals happen. Let's get some deals in books. And by the next month, I hope to hear some more success stories that we have deals solidly in the bag. So thank you again, guys, and we'll talk soon.